All right, I'm joined now by Brent for this week's version of the Odds Report. Brent, of course, a risk manager down at DSI Sportsbook. Brent, how's it going today, man?
Everything going all right. We're doing this on Thursday, so I'm stuffed full of turkey, as you might expect. They bring turkey into the office here, which is quite nice. So I get the lunch feeding, and then I get to do it all over again tonight with the dinner feeding. So I'll be rolling myself out of here.
So, but you're Canadian. Do they bring you whatever Canadians eat on Canadian Thanksgiving?
We do have Canadian Thanksgiving. Yeah, I think it's like a week later or a week after or something like that. But, I do partake in all the turkey that I can.
All right, sounds good, man. We got a lot of stuff going on here this week, a handful of games, and for those that are listening here, I'm recording this from my phone, obviously with Thanksgiving. It's kind of tough to set aside time to do this, but Brent, I appreciate your patience with this, and I hope our listeners can hear me nice and clear over my phone here. But one thing I want to ask you about before we get into these games specifically, and we do have a fairly short card here this week, do the rivalry games bring out more of a handle overall?
Honestly, what really brings out the better handle is just playing good games, and we got there's a lot of good games this week. I mean, even some of the bigger spreads like Washington State, Washington, those are like a couple of teams with identical records. They're ranked like right beside each other basically, and so I'm getting a ton of action on games like that. But even like Notre Dame Stanford isn't a rivalry game, but it's a great matchup. So anytime you get really good matchups, you're going to get a good handle. Look at today's or tomorrow's games like Iowa, Nebraska, for example, is another game where I got real good action. Now I'll admit like Texas Tech is even a good one. There's a ton of good games that's coming up this weekend. Even ones like I said where the spreads are a little bit higher, like that Washington game. Like Ohio State game, for example, even those games, just they're good marquee teams or marquee matchups. So I think this weekend's going to be fantastic for us in terms of handle.
All right, well, we'll start with one of those games that has a big spread here. The first game on the board for Friday, game number 115, 116 in the Big 12 between Baylor and TCU. Some sharp involvement on this game to get us started this week. Yeah,
this is about as big as the spreads they get it for this weekend, and I do have sharp money on the favorite, which is TCU at home. They're up to a 25-point favorite right now. Sharp action came in on this one at 24, so TCU minus 24 was a sharp action there. And again, oftentimes when you get spreads this high, it's kind of good for us in that you often do get public action on both sides of the game, and that's the case with this game too as well. I've got almost an even count in terms of the actual individual number of wagers I've taken now. I mean, Baylor's only won one game on the year, but still it's kind of like a big spread, and people just they're a little more hesitant to lay such a number, so they'll take it more times than they'll lay it into the public. But the sharp guys, they just find value wherever they can. In this case, they played TCU minus 24.
TCU here playing to lock up a spot in that Big 12 title game. The first time we're having a Big 12 title game here. So TCU has a little bit to play for in this game, and obviously the betting market's sort of thinking along those lines. Let's go to a rivalry game here, game 119-120 in the ACC between Virginia Tech and Virginia. Some interesting sharp involvement on this one, Brent.
Yeah, good action on this game as well, too. We've got VTech as a road favorite sitting at -7 right now at Virginia. 7.5 is where I got sharp action in this one. So, of course, the line has dropped. So that was sharp action that came on the home dog, Virginia. I do have, even this one, too, my wager count is pretty much dead even. So I'm getting good two-way action on both the games we talked about so far. In this case, sharp action on Virginia at home plus the 7.5. Down to 7 right now. And, again, my money's not bad. It actually slightly favors Virginia right now. My count is just very slightly, almost even, but slightly favoring the other way in terms of Virginia Tech. So it's just public money betting Virginia Tech. The sharp guys on Virginia, though.
Is this look like a game that's going to stay right there on 7?
Yeah, I believe so. The public usually will unload on a team like Virginia Tech in a case like this, and I just got a kind of sneaky feeling that you might see 7 in juice, or I can't see it touching 7.5 again just because the sharps already played it there. But I could see it sitting at 7 or even like 7 minus 115 by kickoff.
Well, again, for our listeners here, I know it's been kind of an interesting week here with Bang the Book Radio. We had some problems on Monday. We've got the holiday here on Thursday, so we're kind of cramming some stuff in and this and that. I do apologize for this, but we've got another one of the 12 o'clock games on Friday. So, again, for our listeners that don't get to this on Thursday night or very early Friday morning, it's just kind of the nature of the beast here with a bunch of Friday games in college football. But that's game 131, 132, another ACC matchup here. That's the Miami Hurricanes taking on the Pitt Panthers. What's the story here, Brent?
Yeah, I'm a little uneasy about this game just because it seems like this line should be higher. It is down to like 13, 12 and a half even at some spots. Miami, Florida on the road at Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh's, they kind of hang close with teams, and Miami, they don't, I think, one of the biggest wins Miami's had was when they beat Notre Dame as convincingly as they did. But it could be one of those look ahead spots too with Miami having Clemson on deck next. But I do have sharp action on the home dog Pittsburgh plus 14. So it's really, for me, I think it's quite a substantial move. Pittsburgh plus 14 and down to like 13. And like I said, I even see 12 and a half on the board right now. So obviously this number is continually getting bet down despite the discrepancy in the records. I also have a wager count 2-1 favoring Miami. So I've got public money betting on Miami and sharps the other side with Pittsburgh.
Well, this is one of those games where, we've talked about some of the sharp action on game days here that's created some very significant moves out there in the market. And again, obviously some of our listeners are going to hear this after this game kicks off, but this is probably one of those games that profiles as one where we see, if we're going to see a significant game day move, it would be on the dog. And I don't think that would surprise anybody.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that the move already came, as early as it did, though, from the 14. Like I said, there's already a couple of books out there at 12 and a half, which suggests this number just keeps on going down. I don't think it's going to go down a whole lot more. I think it's probably going to settle around where it is right now, just because the wager count favoring Miami like it is.
All right, well, let's get to Saturday here. We got a handful of games to talk about here on Saturday, and this is one we talked about on Thursday's edition of Bang the Book Radio with Brad Powers. So if you missed that, please backtrack and make sure you listen to that segment, because this is a game where we were kind of looking at this line move and sort of trying to figure it out, sort of trying to decipher it. And I know you mentioned on the show before you don't like to do that. You like to just react to the sharp action and not try to dive too deep into their psychology. But it's game 179-180 in Conference USA. Southern Miss takes on Marshall. And based on the conversation that we had on Thursday's show, listeners probably already know what the sharp action is here.
Yeah, I've got sharp action on the dog there, Southern Miss now. This line is down to 2.5 pretty much everywhere right now. Sharp action on this one did come out on Southern Miss. It came here, I always talk about, where the action came here. Now my shop, where they bet me with the sharp money came in, that was on Southern Miss at plus 3.5. Now, if you look at the opening numbers, I think this number did open as as high as 4.5 and got bet down. Now, I'd like to say a sharp guy came and grabbed the 4.5, but here they grabbed that 3.5. Now it's probably, a better spot for me having someone grab 3.5 rather than 4.5, especially since the line's down to 2.5. And so the sharp money I took was on Southern Miss plus 3.5. My count's pretty much dead even in terms of the actual individual number of bets that I've taken, but money favors Southern Miss because of the sharp action that came in.
So is that the reason you moved to 2.5? You're kind of trying to entice a little bit to balance the count there?
Well, I mean, once you get hit on plus 3.5, the preference of it, would ideally be sitting at 3. Maybe they're using 3 in juice and trying to get some money back the other way with Marshall. But when you see the board dropping down to 2.5, you can't really, when you want money on Marshall, you can't really be sitting there asking people to lay 3 when they can lay 2.5 somewhere else. So I was kind of hoping that we'd be able to go 3 dog 15 or something like that, get action back on Marshall. But I kind of had to go with the market, and that's why I'm sitting at 2.5 right now.
Do you think you do go back to 3?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, like I said, I mean, my wager count is pretty much dead even, so I'm getting good two-way action on this one in terms of money coming in on both sides. Now, I know there is some places still are using 3 dog 15, but I kind of, in a spot like that, even though it's 3, but college football, I kind of, I don't fear, breezing through key numbers as much.
All right, we got a handful of really marquee games here on Saturday. We're going to touch on one here between Notre Dame and Stanford, game 195, 196 on the board. Interesting line here on the side, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it's the total that's drawn some sharp investment.
Yeah, this is a probably one of the better games out there, at least on paper, heading here with Notre Dame as a 2-point favorite on the road at Stanford. The spread really hasn't moved a whole lot. I think Notre Dame opened pretty much 1.5. I'm sitting at 2. I know there's some 2.5s out there as well. But the total has moved quite a bit, almost I got a 4.5 point move so far on this one. People are betting this one over. I've got sharps betting it over. I've got public guys betting it over as well. So I'm sitting at 56.5 right now. The sharp guys came in on this one at 52.5. I think it opened 52 elsewhere, but 52.5 is where I got hit by sharps on the over here. And you look at at Notre Dame. I mean, when they've had a three pretty decent games with Navy, they kind of squeaked by Navy. They had the big win versus Miami. I think Wake Forest they beat before that. So they've had some they've been able to put up points recently. I think they scored like 48 versus Wake Forest. I think when they gave up all those points to Miami, they gave up like 41 there. So on the road here, this number 52.5, maybe 52 was a little bit low. Again, the public's betting it over as a 10-2 and sharp action as well.
So this is a game right now that's sitting 2 or 2.5 out there, market wide, up a little bit from the opener of 1.5. Do you envision a 3 here, or does this kind of sit in that 1.5, 2.5 range?
No, I think it's going to sit where it is right now. I mean, it looks good in terms of my action right now, in terms of the actual dollar volume I've taken on this one. Just taking a quick look at my wager count. It does, slightly favor Notre Dame. So I've got, a wager count, not even 2-1, but almost 2-1 favoring Notre Dame. So I could, could I see it creeping up to 2.5? Yeah, I could see it bounce between, 2.5 and 2, but it would take some sharp action, I believe, to push this number onto 3.
All right, one more game on the college side here. The Civil War in the Pac-12. Oregon State takes on Oregon. Game 211, 212. Pretty substantial line move here in this one, Brent.
Yeah, some big moves. Now, again, when we'll get the higher point spreads, it's you see bigger jumps in terms of how aggressive you are moving the number. We took sharp action on the home favorite here, Oregon, minus 21.5. We're all the way up to 25 right now, so that's obviously indicative of sharp action that I got on Oregon. Kind of maybe surprisingly or not, basically having touched on how with Baylor as an example, where the public, when the number gets too high, they just kind of tend to take the points. Might be that case here as well. I do have slightly more bets on Oregon State grabbing the money, but sharp action came in on Oregon, like I said, at 21.5. All
right, we'll move over to the NFL side here. We got 4 games to talk about, but before we do that, Brent, I just want to ask you about this real quick. 5 games with double-digit spreads out there on the board right now, possibly a 6th if Buffalo and Kansas City gets back up there. I mean, I can't remember a week that's been this lopsided in the NFL market.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was one other week earlier this season, a couple of weeks ago, that was kind of like that, where it was just like just a ton of big spreads like that, and it's not the best situation for us in that you usually get these big favorites, obviously teams that are supposed to win, and those are the teams that people always want to tie together in teasers. So I'd have to look at it and say whether we do better or worse with these higher spreads, but you just get the feeling when you're teasing teams, from down to 10 down to 3 and stuff like that. It's like you just don't feel too good about stuff like that. Like, if you tease Atlanta down, you tease Kansas City down and stuff like that, all of a sudden you're looking like, I know they call teasers for a good reason, but those numbers sure look good sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we got 2 sides and 2 totals to talk about here with sharp action in the NFL market. Beginning with game 251, 252, the Cleveland Browns take on the Cincinnati Bengals. And as the phrase goes, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. There are some very insane sharp guys out there.
Yeah, and then, every year there seems to be times where they look at teams like Cleveland. Well, it seems like year after year Cleveland seems to be one of those teams that the Sharps have to every now and then have to come up and play. They just find they find the value, and they just got to grab the points. Last week I think was a situation as too. I believe on game day we started getting money on Cleveland as well, and that was against Detroit. They came in and getting that 10.5, and I think even at halftime it was kind of a close game. But of course, in the end, Cleveland didn't get the money. But they are that was game day action that came in on Cleveland last week plus 10.5 at Detroit, and I'm getting Cleveland action again, the early action that came in plus 9. Now, I mean they are on the road playing Cincinnati, so Cincinnati's 4-6. Cleveland's 0-10, but Cincinnati is not obviously one of the world beaters of the NFL this season, and I got a wager counter in terms of the public favoring Cincinnati almost 2-1. So, any chance you get to have side yourself with the Sharps going against the public, you tend to long term have a favorable position there. And that's the situation this week with the public on Cincinnati and Sharps on Cleveland plus the 9.
Couple of teams off of bye weeks here. Game 261, 262, Carolina road chalk against the New York Jets. We talked about these line moves here with teams coming off of byes. Both of them here in this spot, but one of them is taking sharp money.
Yeah, I mean Carolina, this line's gone from from 4 where the Sharps came in up to 5 right now, and you can kind of get the feeling this line could go up again. Now, I mean, Jets have been kind of competitive. They've been a scrappy team this year. I think they've exceeded everyone's expectations. No one expected the Jets to do a whole lot. I know, I've talked before in previous weeks that our regular season wins, the Jets is probably the biggest position we have, and that was like the Jets were like 5 with big juice on the under, 4.5 with big juice on the under, or even close 4 with big juice on the under, because people just kept betting the heck out of the regular season wins under. So we're kind of sitting here waiting here patiently for the Jets to win their next game. To get them to the 5, so we get make some money on the regular season wins there. But this week I've got Carolina, coming off of 3 straight wins on the road, and I mean their offense sure looks pretty good. Even since they made the trade of their wide receiver there, Benjamin, Carolina's offense seems to be functioning even a little bit better than it had in the past. And Newton's obviously playing fantastic once more. So sharp action here with Carolina. So maybe not a great spot for me because I've got sharp action on Carolina. You can expect the public to be betting Carolina in this spot, and they certainly are doing that as well. So I've got sharp and public going the same way with Carolina. Sitting at 5 right now, like I said, I could see this number going up to 5.5 as well. It just kind of, my count's that way and my sharps are that way as well. But Carolina -4 is where the sharps came in and grabbed that.
And this is one, too, where you've got a tight end like Greg Olsen with such high usage and him expected to play in this game. Obviously, people expecting this Carolina offense to take another step up. So not surprised with the move. And like you alluded to, there's a chance that this number could go up again here before kickoff. Couple of totals to wrap things up here for Week 12 in the NFL. Game 265, 266, Seattle and San Francisco. NFC West matchup in this one. And we're seeing some totals involvement from the Wise guys.
Yeah, I got sharp action on this one on the total on the over. They came in on the over 43. We're up to 45 right now. I know there's some 44.5s out there, but I mean Seattle. I mean, you look at their teams. I mean, they seem to be in a lot of shootouts now. Again, every now and then they have low scoring games. I think it was like last week or previous week they did, and Washington they had a lower scoring game. But I mean, when they put up a lot of points, they sure put up a lot of points. When we saw them with the Atlanta game, I think it was like 65 points there. The previous win was, I guess, Arizona, was kind of a lower scoring, but then prior to that, the Houston game was like 70 something. So you've seen Seattle in some high scoring games so far this season, and I know that these two teams played before, and it was quite a low scoring game. But I guess we're looking to reverse that trend here with the sharp money going on the over in this game. And in San Francisco, I mean they've got that one win on the season, and obviously they're still trying to prove something. I mean they're still giving their quarterback a second chance, but they put up a whole lot of points last week. I know it was against the Giants, but they put up 31 points, and it seems like Seattle, I mean, for all as good as that defense has been in the past, they're so banged up right now. So I mean, maybe 43 was a little bit low. Maybe we took too much into account the previous meeting between these two teams, but 45 is where we are right now. And sharp action, like I said, looks like a pretty good number now. If I could have grabbed some 43.
All right, one more game to talk about here, and this is never a position that you want to talk about here on these segments. Green Bay takes on Pittsburgh, game 273, 274, primetime game, going to get a lot of public action. So you can't be too happy with how things have transpired in the totals market for this one.
No, I mean, anytime you get the sharps betting a game like this over, and again, it's going to be the Sunday night game as you alluded to, so everyone's going to be sitting down and watching this. And again, the public, if they're going to bet this game, they're definitely going to bet the over. Now the spread's quite high. We got Pittsburgh as a home favorite at -14 right now, so they're a big favorite now. I know Green Bay isn't the same offense without Rodgers. That's kind of I don't have to that's overstating the obvious, I guess, but I do have a wager count already of 5-1 favoring the over, so that's the actual number of bets I've taken. So I'm getting a whole lot of public action on the over, and I've got sharp action on the over as well, and we've gone from 41.5 up to 43.5 already. So it's looking like one of those games where I'm going to have to be like a half point higher than everyone else in the market just to try and get anything back the other way, and even then, so I might not get anything back.
Well, Brent, I know it's kind of a hectic day for you with these Thanksgiving games, big Friday slate in college football, and, of course, your favorite sport, college basketball, going on. So thank you so much for joining us, man. We really, really appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
Have an awesome weekend, Adam.